What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Team Chat Podcast, a video game show. I'm one of your hosts, Jarrett Wilson, joined to my right by Rachel Mogan.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno to you as well. How are you this fine, cold, and wet, and honestly kind of disgusting weather day outside there today?
Pretty gross outside. I did actually power through a little bit before it got super cold today and went for my regular lunchtime mosey.
Yeah.
In the mild rain. Not a lot of rain, but enough that I had to actually put a hood up.
Yeah.
So
it was.
I did lightly imagine myself as Ezio from Assassin's Creed.
From the Assassin's Creed,
because
yes.
I never ever use hoods. I actually don't even like them. Like hoodies like what you've got that actually have a hood on them.
Yeah.
I hate those.
Oh,
because I know.
I never wear the hood, really.
No,
it's
because I never wear the
for
hood.
the aesthetic of the
and
of
I don't
the hoodie.
like the aesthetic. So every time
I like them now, especially being a bald man, because when if I am away from the house, forgot my beanie or other head covering, then a brisk chill north wind stirs up and I can just go, ooh, and I'm protected.
No.
Because if I don't, I can't control my body temperature.
Oh, that's
this
true.
is ridiculous. It is the wildest thing that I never anticipated.
You're
shaving your
in
head a lot makes it very difficult. I feel like this year, though, I will say, has been the one that I've acclimated the best to it, and actually haven't found myself just caught in a serious bout of chills just out of nowhere.
Goodness, Jared.
It's it's one of those things you just never really considered nor thought about. But
we do think about all the time. I was trying to help you get there.
We do think about video games, the ones we love, the ones we hate, and everything in between. Thank you for that segue. And you can listen to our musings on the video games every single week on episodes on podcast services around the World Wide Web, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and others. You can also watch a video version of each episode over on our YouTube channel. Links for all that are in the description below. And while you're over there in the description, you can also see links to our social media at Facebook, Threads, Instagram, and you can even join our Discord server where we have a lot of great conversation when we're not here recording the show. And also, you can click on a link that'll take you to our cool, fancy, brand new merch store. Well, it's not really
I was about to say, it's not brand new anymore.
We're just being brand new marketing about it and actually letting people know it's there. But you can do that by tpublic.com/store/team-chat-podcast. Again, it's in the description below, just like a link to patreon.com, whereas for as little as $1 a month, you can support the show. And in return, we'll give you cool perks like getting the episodes early before the general weekly release. And you'll join the ranks of cool people just like Allison H, Ark, Brandon W, Bro Mogan, Super Saiyan Ace, Erica L, Elise F, James K, Michael B, Michael S, Snooty Boots, Susan M, and Zach S. And along with that early access for the $5 tier, you also get early access to our subsidiary show, Team Chit Chat, as well as a lot of extra goodies along the way. And if you can't do that, that's no big deal. We totally understand. And there are a lot of great free ways that you can support the show, such as telling your friends, writing us reviews, subscribing, to anywhere you're listening or watching the podcast. But for everyone, listeners, viewers, patrons alike, we love you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the show. Heart emojis.
Did you see how long I managed to hold off that time?
I appreciate it.
Yeah, because I was looking at Instagram.
Just feel like he'll be done
just
talking eventually. Eventually, I'll hear my name when he says "moment with Mogan," and that's when I snap back.
And that's when I snap back.
All right, well, speaking of, let's get a little bit of news and what's coming out soon in our Moment with Mogan.
Okay, if you recall last time, goodness,
it
there was
heavy
actually
list.
a lot coming out at the tail end of February. Some probably less important than other stuff, so we're going to kind of blaze through it again this time around to get us through to the, I'm actually going to plan it by going backwards and then just decide where I think I'm going to cut it off. Because this episode date will be the 20th, so let's backtrack to that. Okay, so out now, just in case you missed it, and I'm worried a lot of people did because I'm also worried about the quality of the game, Avowed is out now for Xbox Series X and S and PC. The director themselves mentioned that players should expect some day one jank, which is never a good sign. But who knows? Maybe it's okay enough right now, and maybe it'll get better when they presumably fix the game, but it is horse apples that it is coming out in that state in the first place. Let's all just remember that.
I did see, though, I will say, yes, agree. That's kind of like worrisome when they go ahead and come out with the preamble.
We need to remember where the goalposts are supposed to be.
Exactly. But I did see a really cool video of Avowed gameplay where it was just a simple little thing of a player was running up along the rooftops and they wanted to walk from one rooftop to the other across like a canvas awning that was that spanned it. And when they started walking on it, the awning started like wobbling.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
Reacting to it, and then it ripped and they fell through the middle. And I was like, maybe there might be some jank, but that feels like a pretty cool little environmental touch.
I like that.
Might make the world feel alive.
Yeah,
a cool little thing.
Just a cool little thing.
We haven't played it. We don't know what we're talking about yet. But still, I saw that video and I was like, oh, that's a little cool little feature.
And I think both of us, probably a little bit more me, I feel like I've mentioned more times that I'm pretty interested in Avowed.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's actually, okay, you will never know that from someone else. Not to downplay the podcast, but you will never know that from someone else's review video. Like somebody, like with Veilguard, for example. One of the first videos that got posted about reviewing Veilguard was just totally shitting all over it. And we both really like it. So it's like,
we
somebody
don't
else might
sometimes
think
follow
about
the main trend.
Yeah, somebody else might think about Vampire's the best game ever made.
I mean, we do say that too.
We say it all the time. Anyways, our point being, this is also to remind myself, like, hey, I will never know if Avowed is actually any air quotes good or not because that is relative to me. I will have to try to figure out what I actually think about it. But that's regardless because it's for Xbox, XNES, and PC. So I'll just have to wait.
I feel like with Xbox's current strategy that they're talking about bringing some games over to PlayStation.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's only a matter of time. Yeah. I mean, if they're already talking about bringing the Indiana Jones game and have said the Indiana Jones game, I believe in April is coming to PS5. It's like, any game that Xbox puts out or Microsoft puts out, I would imagine after too much time is going to make its way to the PS5.
Yep. And by the time it comes to PS5, they'll probably have fixed everything that was janky about it. So I'm perfectly happy to just sit on my hands and wait. On the 19th, we have, I backtracked just a little bit. We're going to skip some other stuff that came out the other day. Ashen Arrows for MetaQuest, the Pico, and Steam VR is available on February 20th. That is today. Tribe 9 is out for PC, iOS, and Android on the 20th as well. So is Cabernet for PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC. Star of Providence is out for the Switch on February 20th. Stories from Soul, the Gun Dog. Awesome. I don't know what that is, but I'm already sold. That's available for PC, Switch, and PlayStation today as well. X Out, Resurfaced is out for PC, Switch, PS5, and Xbox. Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. What a name. God, I don't understand how the developers of the Yakuza series, I feel like they put out a game a month.
It does seem it's kind of like Warhammer games.
I don't know what they're doing.
Feels like every time you
there.
turn around, you run into one. Yeah,
I'm worried about them. But anyways, there's a new Like a Dragon game out.
They all rate really well. I feel like
they either have a development team of 10,000 people, or those people never leave.
Incredibly talented, either way.
Yeah, but anyway, so Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is out for Xbox Series XS, Xbox One, PS5, PS4, and PC on February 21st. So they're throwing it back a little bit to be more inclusive. Good for them. A game you and I definitely don't care about, but maybe somebody else does. PGA Tour 2K25.
I don't know. I'm really feeling. Last year was all about fighters. This time it's golf games.
We're switching gears, everybody. We're going to golf. That's for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation on the 21st as well. RPG Maker with, I don't know if that's a typo, but that's what the game says it is. That's available for PlayStation on the 21st as well. Sonic Racing Crossworlds is coming to PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC on the 21st. Sonic says the more the merrier. He's running onto every console available. Whisker Squadron Survivor.
Well, that sounds delightful.
Cute. That's available for PlayStation on the 21st as well. Blade and Soul Neo is coming to PC on the 25th. Godzilla X Kong Titan Chasers is coming to iOS and Android. There's no way that game is good. Knowing what I know of mobile games, there's no way that game is good.
And the last wait, was that Godzilla or King Kong?
It's Godzilla X Kong.
Oh,
Titan
okay,
Chasers.
so maybe
it's both.
Remember the terrible Kong Skull Island game that came out like halfway through last year? That was just abysmally bad.
I feel like that one kind of got lost in the shuffle for me, along with that terrible Golem game.
Oh,
I feel like they were pretty neck and neck with each other.
They were about the same time of year, yeah, and neither did great.
Oh gosh. Anyways, so that most likely terrible Godzilla X Kong mobile game is coming out on the 25th. Icy Red is coming to the Switch on the 26th. Him, The Smile, and Bloom is coming to Switch and PC on the 27th as well. Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light Another mobile game that's coming out for iOS and Android on the 27th. I did get a few offers to get a review code for this game because I'm still on mailing lists from my old time, and I was like, no.
Not feeling it.
I don't need one. I've got a life to live. The Escape Room Chronicles, Episode 4, the 24-hour station TV station is coming to PC on the 27th. Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days Collection is coming to PC and Switch on the 27th as well. So is Freddy Farmer for the Switch, Omega 6, the Triangle Stars, for PC and Switch on February 28th. But it literally does not matter because the only game that matters in the world that's coming out on the 28th is Monster Hunter Wilds for PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S on February 28th, people. I know that will be a day one purchase for me. That is a Friday, by the way.
Ooh, look at that. Look at
so
Capcom just setting you up right for your weekend.
Ready. I can't wait to dive in. I'm not going to do the thing this time where I immediately jump into online play without properly reading or paying attention to any of the tutorials.
You're like, I've done this before. I know what I'm doing. Just jumping right in. Leroy Jenkins, let's go.
No, this time I'm actually going to try to pay attention and see what the game is trying to tell me because I feel like there's new shit in there that I need to get up to par with. So that's everything that is out now and coming soon. Closing out the end of February. Again, the only game that matters there is Monster Hunter Wilds. Everybody else, especially PGA Tour 2K25, go fuck yourself.
Take them back.
Take them back. Put them back in the development room. Relaunch them in 5 months. Because
nothing else needs to come out other than Monster Hunter, which does look really fun. Obviously, got all the Palicos. They're going to be cooking us delicious meals as we chase down.
It is very funny that you will never get. I'm going to make a bet, everybody. You ready for a hot bet?
What is it?
Jarrett's not going to make it past level 15.
Yeah, I have had that thought of just man, I already kind of know.
You can just preemptively give up, Jarrett. It's okay.
And honestly, I kind of already had that thought because as much as I think it will be a lot of fun and have fun, I just kind of know there's no way I'm going to be able to keep up with
Civ 7 having just come out. There's no, the time, if Wilds were coming out January 15th.
If Wilds had come out a month later, even mid-March, it would be better. But Civ just came out. I want to have
on the Civ train.
Exactly.
There's no way you're getting off.
I'm still trying to finish up Veilguard. Should have that done in the next week or so too, which should be by the time.
We're trying really hard for next week, guys.
We
Final
were supposed
review.
to talk about it this week, but then we both just could not get there yet.
We deeply underestimated how long the air quotes final quest is. Whoopsies, we need more time.
Yes, so we're working on that. But I don't know. I forgot what I was saying too.
Monster Hunter Wilds,
yes.
Preemptively giving up.
I don't know. I was just kind of I don't feel like there's any way I'm going to be able to keep up with you, Bro, Mogan, and Cody, enough. Even if I was dedicating all my time to it, I do worry about, and then, because with, what was it, Iceborne and even Rise, I was kind of wait for me. And you guys are no, scrub.
You made better progress in Rise.
Yes,
you made pretty good inroads there.
That's true. I did stick with it pretty well for Rise. Never mind. Maybe I'm preemptively,
I bet
talking
if
myself
you go
out of
back
it.
and actually look at how many hours you put into Rise, I'm willing to bet you'd be surprised.
That's true.
Yeah.
I probably should go back. Never mind, everybody. Take it back. Take it back. But since we are not talking about Veilguard today, we did have another fun list episode. Actually, we haven't done one of these in a while. Throwing it back a little bit. And we're not talking about 3 games each. We didn't bring 3 games each to the table. We each brought 5. Well, supposed to be bringing out 5. I'm trying to think of my last one here in the last little bits while we're recording, which I'm sure one will come up. But we're talking about why we have so many games, you ask, is because we're talking about short video games. The best short video games, or to Mogan's idea of doing it, 10 video games you can play in under 10 hours.
10 games in under 10 hours.
So,
each, not collectively.
Not collectively.
I want to clarify.
We don't know that many super short games.
No, God. I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but this is not the case for them.
Yes, on our Wild Hearts. You can play that one.
Yes, you can play that one 10 times.
10 times.
And you'll be at 10 hours.
Yeah.
Good job.
Because it's a real quick one.
It's a real quick one. But the reason for this episode came about by a couple of different means. Really, my inspiration for it came from a lot of the team chat community. Mm-hmm. Because so many people in the Discord recently, I feel like over the course of the past few months, maybe even the past year, I feel like it's been really a recurring theme that people are recommending right, left, and center really short games. Like a lot of games that seem like you can play them in 1 to 3 hours even. A few of these are really short. I know at least a couple on my list can be completed in less than 5 hours. So just depending on the type of gamer that you are and also what completion rate you're going for in some of these games, you might be able to finish them in not even a long weekend. You might be able to do it in a night. So we just wanted to explore the whole world of short games and give the people some recommendations from our own backlogs and games that we really enjoy. And at least maybe one on my list is one that I've actually maybe never talked about on this show.
That's exciting.
I can't remember, to be perfectly honest.
We have talked about, to be fair, a lot of games in the show's history.
If we had talked about it, it would have been back in 2021.
Okay.
So it's been at least 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
Maybe time to bring it back.
Very cool. Well, so because we are going to be fitting so many games into talking about it, and these games are short, this might be a little rapid fire. We don't know how quick this is going to be. We kind of like tossed that out as like before we started of, hey, what if this was like kind of
a 10-minute episode?
A 10-minute episode. Let's just blaze through this real quick. I'll read my 5. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, but why don't you go ahead then and start? What I guess what was our only criteria for this was that it had to be under 10 hours.
Under 10 hours. Yep.
Okay. So why don't you start us off then? Hit me with one of your games. And these are in no particular rank order.
No, this is just games
these
we're
are
recommending.
games that are fun, short, under 10-hour games.
So for this particular one, I actually wanted to kick it back to a game that might also be on your list. And it honestly belongs to be there because it's one we've talked about before many years ago, but I contend still holds up. What Remains of Edith Finch.
Oh.
Remember What Remains of Edith Finch?
Yes. It actually is not on my list. Ooh. So that's great. We don't have to think of another one on the fly because, again, we have to get 10. We committed to 10 games and we have to keep a list. Okay. So, yes, What Remains of Edith Finch. Fantastic game.
It does fall into actually What Remains of Edith Finch, I feel like is one of the marquee game examples that people will often point to and say that is a walking sim. Like What Remains of Edith Finch really got the walking sim label, which I feel like it is accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, to say like it is a first person perspective game, you are walking through basically the life of a family that sort of fell to ruin, and you're understanding how each of the individual members of this family both interacted with each other and eventually sort of fell to their demise. Like what led to that? Was it happy circumstances? Was it bad circumstances? And then you are playing a character that is sort of narrating all of this out loud. So there's no combat. There's no like puzzles. You really are just sort of going through a big house.
There are like a few, not puzzles, but like still some kind of like
interactive elements that you have to work with to get to the next level. To get to the next level being relative here, because really you're going through the rooms of a house.
Right.
You're going through the rooms and the grounds of this big, sprawling, weird, wild house, and just understanding the people that used to live there and the stories that intertwine with them. So although walking sim is an accurate label, I much prefer the term interactive narrative.
Sure.
Because that's really the whole point of What Remains of Edith Finch. It is trying to tell you a very interesting story about the people that used to live in this particular house. And I think it does it very well and through such like when I say that you're exploring each of the different rooms of the people that used to live there, each of their individual stories is presented in such a unique way.
Yes.
They all have they're like totally different little niches. Mm-hmm. It's not one big collective story. It is like little puzzle pieces that you all put together at the end. And in exploring each of the individual stories, there were some really nice standout ones in there that I still remember very vividly. One of which involves an owl and also an octopus. Do you remember?
I don't remember that one.
I don't want to give it away because it's so fun to do on your own. So
I don't remember that one. The two that really stick out to me are the
fish canning factory.
No, not that one. Oh, I don't remember that one either.
We had such different experiences.
No, the ones that like really stood out to me were the one in the bathroom, the bathtub. It's like the underwater, like with the toys, the bathtub toys and stuff like that.
Oh my god, I totally don't remember that one.
So anyway, there's a little hit there, and then the swing. I think
the swing, yes.
I think those
like
areas
the swing a lot.
And it's the thing about Edith Finch too is that it's a very like the subject matter's heavy.
Yeah,
because like
actually,
you said, it's all about like the demise of these various members of this family. Kind of a less gory, less scary Fall of the House of Usher situation, but still.
that's a really good analogy, actually. Damn, good pull.
And so, you're going through this, but the game is honestly, and it's weird to describe it this way, I feel like, delightful.
Yeah, I mean, exactly like what you said, the subject matter is actually like really kind of depressing.
Yeah.
It's not great, but when you like are playing the game, because all of these elements are presented in such a fun and really whimsical way in a lot of cases, you're still having a really good time.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want a game that's probably going to last, that's going to stay with you for a long time because it's really just an awesomely done interactive story, I would very highly recommend What Remains of Edith Finch. I want to say I clocked the game at about 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
But that might even be longer than necessary. I feel like you could probably get through it a little bit quicker if you were short on time. So What Remains of Edith Finch, you can find it on sale for like $1 on Steam.
Right. It's
Like
pretty old
every
at this
other
point.
weekend.
It's like 10 years old, at
It's an
least?
older game at this point, but still holds up really well. That's my first recommendation.
Very cool, very cool. I'm going to piggyback off of your walking sim idea for my first game in this list. And because it's a walking sim and it does have a little bit more some puzzle aspect to it, but I would call this like the most atmospheric walking sim around. But it also clocks in pretty short in the runtime for our list here.
Vanishing of Ethan Carter.
No, I haven't played that one. That's a good one for you. I know you've played that one though.
It's not on my
Again,
list though.
this is
So
an old one.
just
One
a
we've talked
quiet
about-
shout out I've snuck in there.
Just another one that we talked about a long time ago, but I finally got around to playing, I think within the last year,
I got there.
Journey.
Yes, we talked about this, Jared and I, like in our personal lives. We talked about this so briefly because I really wanted to like hear your thoughts here.
Yeah,
Journey
yeah.
is like a 20-year-old game at this point, almost, if not quite there.
Is it that old
It-
already?
it's
'cause
pretty
it's
old.
PS3.
Yeah.
That's right.
Journey's old, bro.
Wow, I didn't think about that, but you're right. I have to look. Of course, if I just
we
Google
have to know.
Journey,
I
I'm
wanna
going
say
to get the band.
2008. Like I feel like it was an 08 or an 09er.
I think you're right. Oh, 2012.
Oh, okay, man, a little
Okay,
bit later than
so
I
a little
thought.
later
All
than-
right,
but
not
still.
quite 20 years old, but still. old.
But talking about short games, this one clocked in at like an hour and a half. Yeah. It's right up there with Sayonara Wild Hearts. It's a pretty quick one. And Journey has always been one for me that I've been interested in more because everybody talks about how an emotional journey it is and just, how it really pulls at the heartstrings. But I've always been more interested in it because of the literal strings, the music of Journey. Austin Wintory does a fantastic job, absolutely knockout score for this game. Because this game, while it does, it's a walking sim because you're pretty much just traversing across like a desert, trying to get and climb up this mountain. I'm kind of forgetting like what's like the end goal. It's not like a resting place kind of thing. Are you paying homage to someone?
I'm not sure I want to say.
Okay.
I kind of feel like
That's part of it?
Yeah,
Okay,
like
okay.
sort of the pull of the game. So the basics are Journey is like it's just a very personal journey.
Yeah, I guess is one of those things you could say you take whatever you want from it.
Yeah.
Because which I feel like might kind of align closely with another game we're going to talk about later on. But just that kind of thing. But it really is just this journey of going
Sorry
through
for all
these,
the count the
but
journeys,
it's-
everybody.
I know, but like, how else do you describe this game? Because it really is just traveling across these vistas, interacting with these mystical creatures along the way. But there's no
Maybe even making friendships along the way.
true, but really, you walk and you jump.
And that's
Pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
And there is no dialogue. There's no on-screen direction at all, text-wise, telling you, hit X to do this, hit square to do this, go to this place. You take it all through visual cues. And the game, and that's one of the things that just blew me away when I played this, is how well it just is able to tap into your game sense and just kind of through like visual cues and animations and things that happen along the world, you just kind of find your way along the right way you're supposed to go. It's also seamless. You just play through it. You don't have like a loading screen stopping and interrupting the flow of the experience. So if you have an hour and a half to play Journey and you've never played Journey, book the hour and a half and just play Journey, because that is the best way to experience it, and you'll
really
probably
is.
shed some tears.
You might happy tears.
It's-
just from being like, just the level of emotions will rise to the extent that you might just shed a few tears.
And because it's one of those things. It is. I agree. Looking back now, yes, definitely kind of like get your own interpretation of the ending from it, but you still can't deny the impact of the music paired with the impact of the visuals.
It is incredible.
Beautiful game.
It's a beautiful game. And actually, it's sort of one of those that, visually speaking, still holds up pretty well because it is so simplistic. It's very stark, but not in like a desolate way. It just has very stark imagery, a very bold
just
color
as art
palette.
style, too, in
the
general.
color palette, the art style, the geometry of it, a lot of that is highly stylized, so it just has really good staying power.
Yep. Love it.
Journey is a great choice, and even if you never play the game, for the love of God, go to YouTube and listen to the soundtrack.
Again,
the
it's only like an hour and a half. Yeah,
it
it's
is
incredible.
so good. The soundtrack for Journey is, I would contend, still like one of the best.
I mean, I think it was one of the first games one of the first game soundtracks we talked about in our very first.
I think so. I think I brought it to the table.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And we opened the episode with it. We've talked about Journey for a while.
So good.
That's fantastic.
That's how old Journey is.
I know. As old as we are.
As old as us. All right, my next game that I want to talk about is lightly in sort of a theme with this episode, because at least one of the people that is definitely a what's like an inspirational factor for where the short games came from is friend of the show, good community member, Ark.
Oh, yeah.
Over the years, Ark has given me many game recommendations. Some have been great. Some have been not great. Some have been not.
You get the good, you get the bad.
You get some in between. But this is one of the ones that, like, I think Ark recommended this game to me. I shit you not, probably 8 or 9 years ago.
Oh, wow.
It was maybe 7 years ago. Okay. It was a long time ago. And at the time I was like, well, okay, maybe I'll get to that someday. And then someday actually did come around years later, and I finally downloaded and played Tangle Tower.
Oh,
I feel like we maybe briefly, I'm sure I found a way to shoehorn Tangle Tower into some sort of conversation.
I mean, maybe, but like that doesn't sound any kind of familiar to me.
And I think I only probably would have been able to bring it up once because it's such a specific experience that it never is really fit into the other topics that we've been covering. But short games, it's the perfect format, the perfect platform upon which to raise Tangle Tower as an excellent game. So Tangle Tower is a what's the word I'm looking for here? Like a
tower defense?
No.
I mean, I'm just shooting at the title there based off the title.
No, it's a mystery game.
Okay.
It's like a mystery investigative, kind of a point and click. That's the word I was looking for. It's a little bit of a point and click mystery investigation game. You play as a detective duo. I think one of them, it's been a long time since I played this game by now, so sorry if I'm forgetting some of the finer details. But you play as a detective duo. I think the main guy's name is actually Detective Grimoire, if I'm not misremembering that. And then he is joined by sort of a blithe, semi-plucky assistant assistant researcher. I don't remember her name. She has blue hair. I'm going to call her Blanche. That just feels right. I don't think that's her name though. So Detective Grimoire and Blanche are going out. Mine are all very themed around houses because they've been called out to help, I think you've been called by a family out to their very weird mansion that is in the middle of a craterous lake. There's a tiny little island in the middle of a lake that appears to be located within a crater, and there's a crazy wild house on this place called the Tangle Tower.
Okay.
And you have been called in to help. I think you're trying to help a family resolve disputes around a will. I believe that is the premise. If I am forgetting exactly what the premise is, my bad. That's as much as I can remember about it right now. It's been a minute by now. But it really stuck with me because, again, it had really, really punchy visuals. It's very flat 2D, cartoony, maybe even storybook style, but just really fascinating character designs. Everybody had such unique and bold silhouettes, really interesting personalities to discuss. I just enjoyed every second of getting to go to each of the different rooms of the house you see. It's all the same. It's all the same but different. And I really liked going to all the different, because unlike with What Remains of Edith Finch, these people are still alive for the most part.
Right.
So it's kind of like a whodunit because you're both trying to figure out this sort of weird stuff around the will, and also I think at some point, somebody got murdered. Okay, I'm remembering now. It's all coming back. Somebody got murdered. I don't remember who. Sorry. I think they were already dead when I showed up, or maybe they get killed like after you arrive.
Yeah.
The point is somebody's dead. There's a bloody weapon. You're trying to figure out how they died. And one of the members of the house, I think like the matriarch, who's like really, really old at that point, she, in the wake of this murder, she's gone completely silent. Like she won't speak at all. So part of the mystery is you're trying to like get this older woman to be like, hey lady, I know you probably witnessed the murder. I kind of need you to tell me.
I need you to revisit this trauma.
We need to revisit this thing. I'm going to need you to just give me something to work with here. So I don't want, again, I can't give too much about the game away because that will totally ruin what is so fun about it. Games. But Tangle Tower, I think I played it on the Switch. If I'm not mistaken, it's also available for Steam. Even when I bought it on Switch, I want to say I paid $4 to $5 for it. It was dirt cheap. I assume it has only gotten cheaper. So put it on your wish list, like bookmark it on Steam for a little price drop notification. When that game goes on sale to $1.50, like it almost certainly does 10 times a year, please play Tangle Tower. It is such a fun, interactive story mystery game. I want to say it took me like a tight, precise 5 hours. I feel like that's where I landed, and it was such a fun experience. It's one of those games that like I want to replay it again in 10 years when I've forgotten every fucking thing about it so that I can go back in blind and be like, wow, what was happening here again?
Yeah.
And just relive it again because it was really interesting.
Nice.
So Tangle Tower.
Tangle Towers.
Also, Ark, thanks for the suggestion.
Hell yeah.
It did take me 6 to 7 years to get around to it, but I got
that's what's
there.
important.
And it was a great game.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, the next one on my list is a game, again, talked about a very long time ago on the show. We have talked about it before, but it is still one that holds a very special place because it was one, my buddy Michael introduced me to this one, and this game kind of kicked off then a love of the rest of this studio's games, and it is Bastion by Supergiant Games.
I thought you were for sure going to find a way to get the Order 1886 in here. I was sure that was going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Does it technically count? It's really short.
It might.
All right, you keep talking. I'll look it up.
It might be 10 to 12, or 8 to 12, which might put it out of contention for this one. If you did a quick straight shot run, then yes. But no, Bastion by Supergiant Games. Again, beautiful game. Beautiful art style. Supergiant Games, I believe they still do it. Watercolor all of their like backgrounds and stuff like that. So all of their worlds have a fantastic. Oh, it's not up anymore. It's in the closet. I haven't found a spot for it.
Oh my God.
But I did a long time ago buy a print of the boy from Bastion. I guess the titular Bastion, you could say. And had the art print up used to be up in the old Team Chat studio back in the day. But
it used to hang right behind me.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's why I have fond memories of it.
But in Bastion, you basically play this boy who wakes up and you live in kind of this like floating world, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a very long time since I played this. It's kind of like each area, it's kind of this floating thing. And as you progress through it or travel through it, it may like add to itself. Some may fall away because this world has suffered a massive calamity. And you are kind of the lone survivor in a way. You meet an old man who narrates the game for you, but then also kind of helps you understand what happened, where you came from, because of course you have amnesia. You don't remember what's necessarily going on.
As one does when you wake up on an island, you just have amnesia.
Weird creatures, like these like sluggish type creatures that I kind of like remember the most, fighting big blob creatures, all these different things that have like now wreaked havoc on your world. You slowly remember that you were part of some kind of defense force that, patrolled a wall that helped protect all these lands. And so it's just this mystery, unraveling this mystery of what happened to your world. But along the way, it is an incredibly great combat system and play style and gameplay is just fun. You get tons of different weapons with lots of different abilities. You have a skill tree. It's very RPG-esque. You unlock abilities and different things like that. They give you different effects for your weapons, different like secondary fires, different stuff like that, combos, abilities, what have you. And, you'll slowly just rebuild your home base and your world and figure out what caused the calamity. But Bastion, again, comes in, I think it's around 8 hours for Bastion and stuff like that, but it's a fantastic, solid game. And then if that hooks your fancy for Supergiant games, go play the rest of them
because they're all
fantastic.
Yeah, they're all incredible. Speaking of calamities, what a great segue.
Oh my God, we're just like bouncing back and forth perfectly.
Great segue into a game that I think I did a full review episode about it a long, long time ago, but I want to bring it back up again because now's the perfect time to discuss the return of the Obra Dinn.
Ooh,
remember this one?
Yeah, see, I thought you were going to talk about Calamity Ganon, though, and that game's way too long for this topic.
I know. New.
You're like, Breath of the Wild, everybody, strap in.
Specifically the speedrunner straps. Where are you going to know? Absolutely not. We're talking about the Return of the Obra Dinn, which is I want to say newer game. What, it came out maybe 5-ish years ago?
Yeah,
something like that.
That sounds
feels about right. Anything pre-pandemic is like just in my mind.
Was it yesterday or was it?
It's permanently at the 5 years ago mark. It could have been 10. I don't know.
20 years from now, we'll be like, oh yeah, COVID 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago. That was 5 years ago. So anyways, as far as I'm concerned, Return to the Obra Dinn came out approximately 5 years ago. And it is a fascinating indie game. I believe it's one of those games that was made by a tiny studio and or, depending on my memory, possibly one guy. And it's made to be an homage, at least visually speaking, to the old days of like the Mac OS games, where it's that extremely pixelated, high contrast,
almost like line drawn,
like I would even say pixel drawn, but in such fine detail, like black on white pixelated graphics. And I vividly remember that in the settings for the game, your only options for the visuals are to change them to increasingly niche Mac ones. So there's like a really dark green on like a black and that kind of stuff. So it's like super high contrast, almost kind of hurts your eyes if you play it in a dark room. So play it in a regular lit room because the contrast is so good you will have no trouble seeing the screen. But the premise of Return to the Obra Dinn is you're an insurance inspector. And I
did not remember that.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious. You're an insurance inspector, and I want to say it's roughly 1800s, thereabouts, based on the type of ship that you're inspecting. You've been called out to a dockyard to inspect the remains of the Obra Dinn. It's a ship. So you've been called aboard to sort of get to the bottom of what happened to all the people on this ship and basically like take stock of the condition for insurance purposes, which I think is so funny.
That is a very funny premise.
What that means in real time is what you're really trying to do is get to the bottom of what happened to every single person on the ship's roster. So you're trying to figure out, okay, what happened to the captain? How did he die? Am I sure that I know that this corpse that I'm looking at is the captain? What if it's somebody else?
Okay.
So in real terms, the whole point of the game is you're trying to basically, it's all a very complicated and interestingly well done match who's who. It's a who's who of the roster. You're trying to figure out who died, what killed them, and that is like the most boilerplate way that I can describe the game.
Okay.
But the way that you navigate through the ship and find out what happened to them is actually like it can be a very complicated puzzle, because essentially every time you get, I want to say 3 deaths correct in your ship's roster, the game tells you. So It doesn't give you no instruction. It gives you at least a little bit of instruction about sort of the types of things that you're looking for. So every time you get, I think, 3 people right, the game's like, hey, good job.
You did it.
You got 3 people
Congrats.
right. You've still got 40 more to go. It's a lot of people because you're trying to figure out both the captain, the first mate, the captain's wife, the boatswain, the hacklehosser. I don't know boat terms. Yeah, sure. I'm just making stuff up. You're trying to figure out all of the passengers, all of the crew, match them to the way that they died. And again, I can't give too much away because that totally misses the point.
You're on a theme of like mystery games right now.
Yes, really, because all of the best mysteries are tight, contained experiences that do such a good job of ratcheting up the tension and then paying that off, because something that you really can't do super well with a long game is maintain tension.
Right.
You can't like do it in the same way. Shorter games are so much better about delivering a really like maybe a slow start and then a really high ratcheting up, and then you get to that point of the climax of the story and then you're like, what a great game. 10 out of 10. And that's why they leave such a big impression. Return of the Obra Dinn definitely does that. It is, however, not necessarily smooth brain friendly. This is the kind of game that you actually have to really think about it, and sometimes you just have to sort of use like I'm going to say the word save scumming because it's the closest thing I can think of, but that's not the case.
Sure.
You basically just have to like use test taking abilities essentially to see if you can fill in the gaps of what you don't know, because it's actually very heavily relies on both audio and visual cues, because every time you get to a new scene of the crime on the ship, essentially, you kind of get a snapshot. I won't even call it a cutscene because that's not really the case. You get a snapshot of that point in time. You have like a magical stopwatch that helps you do this. You get a snapshot of that point in time, and it is often accompanied by a black screen with an audio voiceover of what was happening. So you hear what people are saying. What are their accents? Can you actually understand the words that they're saying? Are they in another language?
Interesting.
Because those are all cues for matching the people in the roster to who's dead and where.
Okay.
So those are all things that you really cannot discount. All of it is extremely important. Every bit of information that the game gives you and doesn't is in some way, shape, or form a clue. So it's a more challenging puzzle game, I will kind of put it that way, like a logic puzzle game is really the way to describe it. But if you are up for it, Return of the Obra Dinn is very fun. It has a really good but minimal soundtrack. The visuals are super interesting, and the story goes to some wild, the life of an insurance inspector.
Not what you would expect.
Not what you would expect, but so very interesting. So Return of the Obra Dinn gets a shout out.
There you go. All right, next one up for my list is a game that we actually, I believe we both played it, and we both did a review on it, or we talked about it way back when. Well, not too far. This one was about 5 years ago. But this one was fun. Indie game developed out of India, Raji, an ancient epic.
Oh, good pull. I totally forgot about Raji.
This one is like 5 to 8 hours, I believe, and it follows a tale of a young girl, Raji, who is chosen by the gods to help fight against a demonic invasion who have stolen her brother for some unknown purpose. But obviously they're demons. You assume that can't be good.
Probably isn't good.
Probably not a great time. And so you are tasked by the gods and, given gifts of weapons, abilities to be able to fight against these demonic hordes. And so what's fun about this game is that it very much throws back to kind of the older style God of War games. And it's like that isometric top-down, but still 3D environment where you can jump around and move around, do all these different things, be kind of like has a more hack and slash feel, but still there are combos and different things that you can pull off with your weapons or big finishing moves and stuff like that. But it was just a really fun action platformer. The story was really great. All of the designs of the levels and everything were great, obviously taking full influence from ancient India and everything like that. So also a really great cultural experience and like learning experience too, because it does go a lot into the background of this tale and the
you learn more
mythological
about the gods.
like influences and stuff to it. So it's really cool. So Raji, an ancient epic, like I said again, 5 to 8 hours, and it's just a really fun time. Fun action, big enemies, cool bosses. It's a good time. Check it out.
So my penultimate, I've talked about 3.
Right, yeah.
So this will be the penultimate one. This is the one that I can't remember if I've ever talked about on an episode before. So if it sounds familiar, don't stop me because I'm going to talk about it anyways. But I kind of feel like I just can't remember.
I kind of feel like mine we have all talked about at some point.
Well, I'm going to talk about, and it's not a detective game.
Breaking the mold.
Breaking the mold. I want to circle back to Solar Ash. Do you remember this game? I bet you would remember the trailers, because when the trailers were coming out, it had such an incredibly bold style. Here, let me.
Yeah, I don't know. This is not sounding familiar to me. Okay.
It immediately
Yep.
clicks. Like as soon as you see the color palette.
Yes, very.
As soon as you see that super, again, kind of like Obra Dinn, very high contrast, but in this one, it is just a saturation of colors.
Obra Dinn is like simplistic high contrast. This is like graphic
Solar
novel,
Ash
comics.
was going for the most.
it's very bright, vibrant colors.
Very bright and vibrant, but again, also a very sort of geometric, kind of blocky world, because this is also one of those indie games that we all know and love. But Solar Ash is much more I don't know quite how to describe it, like a heavily movement-based, ultimately exploration game. It does have some light combat involved, but it is to such a lesser extent that I really wouldn't even necessarily call it an action game in the traditional sense, because I feel like that might mislead people. So I'll call it action exploration, because I think that's sort of the point. Solar Ash takes place in space, in a world that is far beyond our own, probably. Oh, and this is from the development team that did Hyper Light Drifter.
Oh, okay.
So if people are familiar with Hyper Light Drifter, this was their next game after that, I believe. And I think the development team has said that it does take place in the same universe as Hyper Light Drifter, but that totally doesn't matter to the story of Solar Ash at all. The point is, you are because we've just played Veilguard, I want to say the world Veil Jumper, but that's not correct. You're some sort of researcher.
Veil Drifter.
Yeah, actually, Drifter might be.
That might be right.
That
Well,
might
that's
be,
Hyper Light
yeah,
Drifter.
that's Hyper Light Drifter. Never mind.
That's
I'm getting
the only
confused.
reason I pulled that in.
It does not matter. The point is, you have space skates. That's what I'm trying to get
fancy.
to, because it's very much a movement-based game. And when you get to this sort of world that is collapsing, you are going to a world that's collapsing because it's being eaten up by a black hole. And I think you're trying to find the missing members of your team because they went down ahead of you, and now you're not sure where they are. You've lost communication with them, so you're trying to get the members of your team out and hopefully escape from this dying world before it fully collapses into the black hole.
Yeah.
That's the premise. So you get down to this very foreign world, and it's almost like a cloud, but that is shaped like a world. Because other than the floating structures that are being slowly pulled by gravity into the black hole, it's really just sort of like seascapes of cloud out there. And you go out there, and you're just skating around. And it's just like, it's a very zen game in that if you want to, you can just skate around as much as you want. You don't really have to progress the story if you don't super want to. I mean, that will help you unlock the later levels of the game, so that it includes more exploration in there. It's obviously very fun and rewarding to figure out where you can get to.
Right.
That's kind of part of the fun, is puzzling out okay, if I go over here and then jump from this rail to that rail and do a sweet sick flip in the air and then maybe bounce off a couple of enemies on the way, I can get to blank and get one of the game's few collectibles.
Nice.
So that's really sort of the point of it from my perspective, but it is also interspersed with each area having a final boss. And this is sort of a Shadow of the Colossus scale boss, like some big hulking behemoth will come flying through the air, swimming through the clouds, and you have to kill them, frankly.
Get rid of them,
That's
yes.
frankly what you have to do. Your character has kind of like a needle as their weapon, so it's sort of a case of you have to scale your way onto the boss and then also figure out how to slowly wear away at their weak points while not dying yourself. I wouldn't say that I found the game particularly challenging, but I did die a couple of times because I was just dicking around and I did.
Just got too busy skating.
I was just skating. I was in my
Doing some figure
fields and
eights.
doing some sick flips, and then the boss was like, "Well, bam!" And I was like, "Oh shit!"
There's something else I got to be doing here.
Fuck. And at one point, I did get really stuck because I couldn't figure out how to get from one area to the next, and I did actually have to wind up looking it up. I was stuck for that long that it was negatively impacting my experience. And then when I figured it out, I felt so fucking stupid. So I think
That's how I always feel every time I get stuck in a game.
I feel like this is one of those got lost in the wrong bushes in Dark Souls game kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I just literally didn't turn and look to the right section, and after I looked it up, I was like, oh my god, that's so stupid. Literally so dumb. So I don't think most people will have that problem. Use your eyeballs, don't be like me. But Solar Ash is a really interesting experience. I think this is sort of one of the longer games on my list. It could actually go over 10 hours if you were wanting to really be a collector about it.
If you're really just skating.
I didn't do that. I was just skating and vibing out, and I want to say it was like 8 to 10, I think is where Solar Ash lands. Fun game, definitely has a very sort of existential message to it, so maybe don't play it if you're already in a bad mood.
Oh, okay.
Go into it with an open mind and just be ready to vibe out on your space skates, because that's what I was there for.
Hell yeah. All right, well, my penultimate game is one that takes a little more of the emotional turn. Again, features incredible art style, incredible soundtrack, and really a story that does a lot without saying hardly anything. In fact, it might not say anything at all, but it is Gris.
I can't believe I didn't put Gris on my list.
I was scared that might be our only that might be our crossover. So I'm glad that we didn't cross over that way.
I can't believe I didn't put Gris on my list. Am I stupid?
It's a good game.
It's a great game.
And Gris is one because you play the role of an unnamed woman who is making her way through these various landscapes. And again, it's very simplistic in its gameplay. You're
2D side scrolling.
You pretty much just jump. Same thing. Like you walk around and jump every once in a while. You might pick up stuff here and there, but I don't think it's a huge part of it.
One of the early power-ups that you get, if you can call it that, is the ability to become cube-shaped.
Oh, that's right. To like smash and stuff like that. Because you also get one to do like triangular, and your dress forms like a parachute like thing, so you can glide and stuff like that.
I remember being so just over the moon delighted when I became Cube. I was so happy.
But one of the cool things about Gris is really its art style, because the game is kind of like starts at first very colorless. Like it's a very bland color palette. And I believe, if I remember correctly, each level is kind of its own one. Like the first one starts off, it's like really red.
Yes.
And then maybe you get to like a dark, like there's one that kind of is at night in a watery area. And so it's kind of like an oasis, a desert oasis. So it's a blue level. But the whole point of Gris is that the woman that you're playing as, this character, has suffered some kind of loss, some kind of tragedy has befallen her. And this is basically a quest for her to regain her voice. You learn from cues early on in the game that like this woman used to be able to sing, you know, or at least be able to vocalize in some way. But now you're silent and you like try to sing at various parts and you can't. And so it's all about like kind of like rediscovering your voice after tragedy, rediscovering yourself after tragedy, I feel like is probably the key themes of it. And it's, you know, it's emotional. It gets heavy. Again, it doesn't say, I don't think a word is spoken in the entire game, but you are just ushered along through both the incredible visuals and the stunning soundtrack by Berlinist. And it just really tells that story very similarly to Journey, but also similarly to Journey, you kind of infuse your own experiences into it and kind of your own tragedies or things that you put into the game. Actually, when we had played it, my niece had recently passed within the last year, and so like it was kind of a thing of like very much like having a very real and recent moment where that I was able to connect with through this game, and it was just a beautiful experience. It definitely like pulled at the heartstrings and made for a heavy gameplay at times, but just the overall the feel, the look, and the climax, the moment of triumph that you achieve at the end really just does like fill you with hope. And so it's a powerful game.
It's a powerful game. And I would say that it's emotional, at least for me, in the sense of, you know, it is heavy, but it's cathartically heavy.
Yes.
Like the emotional journey that you go on, like more so than even Journey or some of the other games, it really feels like when you finish it, you will feel better.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna feel like you got something out of it one way or another. And speaking of like visuals, I remember just stopping like every new area and just taking constant screenshots because every single frame of that game, every architectural like magical dreamscape that you come across, I remember just being like them show-stoppingly being beautiful.
It's incredible.
It's such a stunning game. The soundtrack is incredible. The visuals are beautiful, and it's a very there's a great emotional payoff is the way to say it.
Yep.
Good choice.
Absolutely. So
man, I'm glad you brought it up because it wasn't on my list. And
I really was for sure. I was like, man, we're going to be scrambling at the last minute. Because again, we don't talk about these lists. We don't compare notes on these because we like it to be a fun surprise. We just see what happens. Random bullshit go. Pocket sand. But still, so I was like, man, if there's any going to be one that we cross over on, it's going to be Gris. So that's a fun surprise that we didn't.
Good choice.
But what is the final one on your list?
The final one on my list.
This is where we cross over randomly.
Definitely not. For sure not. Because this continues my theme of arc suggestions. But this is a much more recent one.
Oh, I think I know which one it is.
You know what this one is. So I want to finally talk about this bed we made. So I got the suggestion from Arc, I want to say maybe last fall / late summer. I can't remember exactly when it came out, but I know that I was playing it, I think in the lead up to Halloween, which is...
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's kind of loosely Halloween-esque in that it is yet another murder mystery detective game.
Honestly, though, I guess Edith Finch wasn't a murder mystery, but it's kind of like still an investigation.
You're still uncovering a story, so that's kind of an investigation.
Theme. I think Solar Ash is the only one that's not like a mystery of this list.
Gris would have counted because that is much more a puzzle platformer, but I didn't think of that game, so fuck me, I guess. I have a type. It took all of my willpower.
Not to talk about Nancy Drew?
To not put 5 Nancy Drew games in a row.
Honestly, I would have applauded the gumption to do it. You know what I mean? To just be like, yeah, she went there. She committed.
This game could have been 10 Nancy Drew games in a row. There are that many. They can all be played in less than 10 hours. Yeah. So it truly, Nancy Drew is the shadow victor of this episode. But that's not the one I'm going to talk about.
Every one of them, honorable mention.
Honorable mention. Yeah, all 35 of them.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, my God.
Anyways, no, we're talking about this bed we made. And I actually remember hearing about one of my young Gen Z coworkers at the time mentioned this bed we made to me, and I was like, oh, he's young and gay. He must be cool. Is this...
The two qualifiers.
Young and gay. Those are the qualifiers. I was like, it must be a cool game then. So he had already kind of gotten my interest going. And then I remember Arc talking about it a lot. And it was a gift. So Arc gifted me this bed we made. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arc.
Yes, thank you, Arc. So I finally got around to playing it. And actually, kind of like with your Bloodborne stream, I exclusively streamed this game. So it did take me longer to finish in terms of real time than it would have normally taken me. But I believe when I clocked in at the end of the game, I want to say I had spent about 6 to 7 hours in it. And a lot of that time was me really dicking around. Because it was a stream, you're talking, you're really shooting the shit. I think if you played it on your own, it's more likely to take you that 4 to 5 hour mark.
Okay.
But this bed we made has a really fun sort of detective premise to it because it's definitely not your norm. You play, I want to say it's the 1940s or 50s. You're in Montreal, Canada, of all places.
Hey.
Yeah, Canadian game. It's the middle of a horrendous snowstorm. Everybody's snowed in, and you are a maid at a hotel. And you've uncovered crimes because you're very nosy. You're a maid, and you are
digging around in all this shit.
You shamelessly are going through people's stuff at the hotel, which you feel kind of creepy about, but also you're like, well, maybe I do want to try on their perfume and their lipstick. You can't stop me. It's the 50s. There are no security cameras in this time. So you play as Sophie the maid. Initially, you're actually not really sure what it is that you're investigating because the crime in question and or the mystery in question really unfolds as you play the game. So your day-to-day tasks are you are going through, actually I want to say the game takes place over the course of one day.
Oh, okay.
Like maybe 1 to 2 days max. I can't remember if there was
quick detective work.
Yeah, I can't remember if there was a break in there or not, but you are going through specifically the 5th floor. I think it's the 5th floor. If it's the 6th floor, don't say anything. Just pretend
don't
it was.
At me in
don't
the
at
comments.
me. Just pretend it was the 5th floor. Sophie has been assigned to the 5th floor, and she is going through all of the rooms on that floor to clean them up. I say all, but actually one half of the hallway is blocked off, so it's really just one half of the hallway is what you're focusing on. And each of the rooms, as you sort of keep investigating them, they all kind of feel like they have stuff that's related to each other at a certain point. And then one of the rooms, you actually go to investigate not investigate, you're cleaning. You're cleaning the bathroom, okay? It's a normal thing for a maid to do, but when you get in there to clean up, the bathroom has been and this is like early game stuff, so this isn't a huge spoiler. The bathroom has been redone by its temporary resident as a photography darkroom.
Oh, see,
And
that's just sus.
Photos of you are strung along the drying line.
What kind of game is he playing?
And it's you investigating other people's stuff. So it's like kind of
a little bit of blackmail.
It's a little bit of blackmail because it's you doing stuff that you shouldn't have been doing.
And they know you're going to come into that room.
Yeah. And unlike some of the other games that we have talked about here, this one has a lot of other NPCs, people that you can actively talk to. And Sophie has a personality. She has agency. She's not like a lot of the other sort of silent or nameless protagonists that we've talked about before. So she's very sort of meek and mild, but with a little bit of like a little bit of hidden zazz to her because she's, she's going to do some light crimes, frankly.
Yeah.
She might do some crimes, and then depending on sort of the alliances that you make throughout the game, you can have a lot of very different story outcomes. I thought I was doing so good in this game, and then I got to the end, and I for sure got the bad ending.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I 100% got like the bad ending. It was good for Sophie, sort of. Although I did get fired.
Oh,
yes,
but you murdered 5 people and got off scot-free, so I guess that's a win.
Again, I won't say any much more about the story other than that you are investigating the lives of the people that are currently residing in your hotel. Maybe some crimes happen on the side. Maybe they don't. Maybe you find love along the way. Maybe you don't. Maybe you keep your job. Maybe you don't. It is completely...
Mysteries.
Well, it's totally up to the decisions that you as Sophie make. So there's a lot of fun stuff around the side of when you go into people's rooms and you look at their stuff. Do you choose to throw something away? Do you choose to put it back? Do you leave a suitcase open? Or do you remember to close it on your way out? Do you clean off the mirror that had maybe some threatening writing on it? Or do you leave it up? And then the sort of narrative casing around the game is that the game opens with Sophie being questioned by the police.
Oh, okay, so it's kind of like explaining everything that happened throughout the night.
It's you explaining what happened. So you're at the police station being questioned, and then you flash backward in time to the day that you're telling the officer about. And then at the end of the game, once you've done all the stuff that you're going to choose to do as Sophie, you flash forward again to being in the room. The officer asks you questions about the shit that you did. And again, there are a lot of options because you can choose to be honest. You can choose to lie. You can choose to maybe fudge the truth a little bit to protect someone that you're friendly with. So there's a lot of different ways. I can't know this for sure because it's not like I looked at a tree of the decisions, but I can imagine how it was a very complicated web because I looked back at all the different little choices that I made along the way and I'm like, ooh, I feel like I'm seeing some of the cracks in my approach because I remember at the final sort of sprint where I was like, okay, the crime had for sure happened and I was sort of deciding where my allegiances were going to lie. I went basalt of the earth back through every room. I was like, is that evidence? Into the garbage. Evidence? Trash it. Is that evidence? Get rid of it. I was like hiding murder weapons.
Yeah.
I was getting rid of evidence left, and center. I was doing what I now think was perhaps at least 50% wrong.
I think a lot of crime. I think you did a little bit of crime there.
But I didn't get arrested, so I came out scot-free.
Nice.
So anyways, it's a really interesting game. I think it does probably have a lot of replay value. So
especially if there's multiple endings.
Especially if there's multiple endings. So a lot of replay value there, I think. And again, like a pretty tight 4 to 5 hours. I think especially if you've already played it once before and you kind of know more what you're doing, I think it will take you a lot less time. So this bed we made is really interesting. I want to say it's at that $15 to $20 range, maybe thereabouts. I can't remember. It's, again, one of those games that goes on sale all the time on Steam.
I mean, again, the whole premise of this episode, too, is that these are shorter games.
Shorter games.
A little bit cheaper, easier on the wallet.
Usually have a nice cheap price tag.
Nice to see.
Can you imagine if Journey had been $60? I would be a little mad. I'd be a little mad.
Yeah, the people who bought, who bought...
Resident Evil Village!
That or... The Order 1886, and everybody else was like, "This is an 8-hour game. This is bullshit. I paid $65 for this." But then, ignoring the technical excellence that game brought to the industry.
But this bed we made was the last one on my list. That's
Very
my
cool, very
fiver.
Cool. All right, well, I'm going to round us out then with my final game. I can't believe that we made it here with no crossover at all, but
Good thing I reminded you about the Order 1886.
That is good, because here I am to talk about it. Just kidding. I'm actually not talking about the Order 1886. My final game is Katana ZERO. Now this one, actually, if you see it, it's actually got. I planned ahead and put the soundtrack back there.
And it's a sick looking album cover too.
Oh, it's such a great.
You want me to scoot back and bring it forward?
Yeah, sure. Why don't you? But Katana ZERO, you play. Again, I believe kind of maybe a nameless protagonist.
Why did you say that so weird?
I don't know why I said that so weird. Just, sometimes come out weird like that. But yeah, like look at this incredible art style and everything.
Look at that
Look at those
beautiful
beautiful colors.
80s colors.
Hell yeah.
Definitely an 80s neon vibe in this game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the soundtrack too is just like pure electronic synths, but also sometimes has like a fun, like jazzy feel to it. Yeah. Hell yeah. Look at all that. Oh, some dudes are getting stabbed.
Oh, they're getting killed.
They're dead.
They're dead.
But basically, again, it's been a minute since I played this one, so I don't remember the exact like conflict of it. But you're basically this swordsman who is on a secret mission to, I guess, uncover his past. And throughout the game, you'll have interactions with your therapist, who you can tell is kind of in on something. He's either like a therapist, maybe he's like a handler. You're not totally sure.
I definitely forgot the therapist part.
Yeah,
for sure.
And so he'll give you like some info on some things, maybe but then also like give you your next mission that you go out on and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely, I guess more of a handler.
You know how therapists do.
Yeah, taking advantage of you a little bit, I think, in this instance. But it all seems to be like you're told you have this mission to do, you go do this mission, you come back, you receive more information, but then something never still feels quite right for the whole thing. But also the whole point of this is that on these missions, you're going to various locations and creating mass amounts of carnage, let's just say. Because the whole point of this game and what makes Katana ZERO so fun is it is a 2D side-scrolling game, side-scrolling platformer even. And it kind of takes like each section of a level is like screen at a time, basically, where you kind of run through it and you'll be like, say you'll start at the bottom of the screen, you're trying to get to the top, and that's how you advance to the next section of the game, of the level. But you want to go through as quickly as possible, taking out the enemies in as few hits as possible, preferably like one hit, takedowns and stuff like that. But also, you will be shot at because you have a sword, again, the titular katana of the Katana ZERO game. And you only use this sword. Your enemies will have melee weapons, their fists, but also guns, flamethrowers, sniper rifles, like ballistic shields and all this stuff like that you have to go exactly that you have to go up against. But you do, along with your sword, have the special ability to slow down time.
Oh yes,
and
I remember this.
That
now.
When you slow down time, that gives you the ability to deflect a bullet back to your opponents and back into your opponent.
Like Neo.
Do a huge dashing attack that allows you to cover like huge distances and take out everybody in your path. It is in the distance of the strike, and you just use this to your ability to make your way through these missions. Now the thing is, you only get hit once and you die. And if you die, you reset back to the beginning of that room and run it again. It honestly is very roguelite light, in a way, kind of like how it is the multiple runs and everything like that. It's not the same, it's not quite in the same way where it's like every run is different and every run has been what's the word there?
Optimized?
No.
Predetermined.
Or
predestined. Manifest destiny?
Or randomized, I guess. Okay. Like each run's randomized and stuff like that. It's not that. It does follow the same set path. You'll run across the same set of enemies, but still where it's like you get that one shot and you run it back if you lose. But then it's cool for at the end of each mission or area and stage, it will show you a quick full speed playthrough, even what they would be seeing, basically, not counting your time slowdowns and all this other stuff to kind of see how you ran through the mission. Yeah. It's so cool. But as you keep going and learn more about this organization that you're working for, you uncover a deeper mystery, and that leads to maybe this isn't all what it seems. But Katana ZERO is a hell of a good time. Way more high octane than anything else we've probably really been talking about tonight. And it also, even though the game's a few years old at this point, they have been in long development on DLC, free DLC update that apparently at this point has become bigger than the original game itself.
Oh my god! It's one of those Dead Cells.
We're kind of like a Silk Song situation though, in that it's been in development for a while. They're like, yeah, we're still working on it, but who knows when it'll actually get here.
Yeah.
But still, I am waiting with bated breath for the DLC because this game was awesome, and I would love even a sequel if we get that at some point.
I am gonna do a quick honorable mention because you made me think of it.
I actually thought of one too. Let's see if we'll cross over again.
Probably not. My honorable mention, and I didn't initially include it because I spent, I think, far more than 10 hours in the game, so it didn't even occur to me that it qualified, but it definitely does if you're good enough at it. Neon White.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
I was
Fucking
honestly
duh.
kind of surprised you didn't talk about it. I did think about it
that's
earlier when you
because-
said a Solar Ash, and then I saw the artwork. I was like, oh, that kind of looks like Neon White, but I didn't say it.
Again, I personally did not play it in under the time limit, but the whole point of Neon White is to be a speed running game, so you absolutely can finish it in under 10 hours.
Right.
For sure. Neon White is phenomenal. It is a crazy speed running card game, if you want to phrase it that way, action platformer. It is, the less I say about it, the better, because I just want you to have your own experience.
Make your own opinions.
Neon White is phenomenal. Again, an indie, not full price game. For the love of God, go play it.
The other one, my honorable mention that I will say is one that you and I both played near the end of last year on stream. Also, Bramble the Mountain King, gift from our friend of the show, Kirok. That game is a absolutely bonkers ride through Nordic fairy tale. I'll leave you at that. It's crazy, it's wild, and it will have you gasping in shock and horror.
Also, you should go watch the VODs of our playthrough on our YouTube channel because it's some great stuff. Very funny.
It is a goal of mine to make a supercut of all of our deaths. And I just haven't quite got around to it, but I have an idea for it in mind, and I want to make it soon. But that game was a trip. So go check out Bramble. It clocks in around 5 to 6 hours.
Yeah. I want you to go back and make a short of me seamlessly and without even realizing it, threading the needle on those bear traps.
Oh yeah. That was a funny part.
Fun stuff.
Those got me every time, and you just walked through it no problem and had no idea it was even a risk. You were in any danger at all.
Well, when one walks with the Lord.
Well, I can do all things through Christ, so jot that down.
Just write that. Put that in your book.
Alrighty. Well, I think that concludes our list of 10 games to play in under 10 hours.
Less than 10 hours.
So, again, quick recap. The games that I brought up were Bastion, Raji and Ancient Epic, Journey, Gris, and Katana ZERO.
And I've got Tangle Tower, What Remains of Edith Finch, This Bed We Made, Return of the Obra Dinn, and Solar Ash.
Love it. Love it. Well, we put together a wonderful list of some of our favorite games that take place in under 10 hours. And of course, we would love to hear some of yours. So send us an email at teamchatpodcast@gmail.com. Join our Discord and talk about it with us there. Or, leave us a comment wherever you're listening to or watching the show. But that concludes this episode of Team Chat. Until next time, everybody, I'm one of your hosts, Jarrett Wilson, joined to my right by Rachel Mogan.
Adios.
We'll see you all on the next episode.